Thank you, Susie. I have to tell you, I am so delighted to be here with you today because my life's purpose is really about enabling people like you, women, to uplift themselves so that they can uplift others, to enable you to be at your absolute best and to encourage you then to support and enable others to be at their best when they're facing ambiguity, change, and transformation. And so, the truth is, when I look around this room, having met just a few of you throughout the day and having met, some of the women behind the scenes, I know that you've already all been very successful in your lives, whether you claim it for yourselves or not. You have accomplished hard things. You have achieved your goals. And at the same time, if you are like me, there are things that you have not yet achieved, that for some reason, you just can't seem to get them done. And this might sound odd, but I want you to remember one of those things now, something you haven't been able to accomplish that's kind of frustrated you. I want you to see it in your mind's eye. I want you to think about the circumstances that surrounded it. And I want you to ask yourself, what was getting in the way of accomplishing it? Now, park that in your mind because we're going to come back to it in a little bit. And I will share with you, I had a goal like that myself, and I wasn't able to achieve it for not one, not two, but for 3 years. But I finally did. I, a certified couch potato, poor hand-eye coordination, has never hiked a mile in her life before this, walked 500 miles across northern Spain along El Camino de Santiago. What I learned from that experience, I want to share with you. I share this with my clients to enable them to go out and launch their big ideas and create new realities, not just for themselves, but for their teams and for their communities. And these are the lessons I want to share with you today. I'll tell you about my experience, and then we're actually going to do some work together for you to envision what's your next big idea or what's your new reality that you want to create. I want you to start by picturing the woods of Northern California. Not much unlike what we see around us here. And it's a beautiful sunny day, and there's a gentle breeze that's blowing. It's June 1999. I'm at a leadership development retreat that Coca-Cola, my employer, has sponsored me for. And as I'm walking through the woods, I suddenly have this sense that I can't quite explain. And I feel like something's trying to get my attention. And I notice, as I start to look up and look around, that there's a break in the tree branches right over there, and there's sun pouring through it. And if this was a movie, we might hear, ah, because in that moment, I had a knowingness that I would go to Spain to do something spiritual. I didn't know what it was. I just knew I had been called, and I would go. So I leave the retreat. I return home to Atlanta, Georgia, and my husband of only 2 months, and I say to him, Joe, we're moving to Spain. Now, if you knew Joe, you would know at this point in his life, he is a Marine reservist. He graduated from the Naval Academy. He's pretty buttoned up. He's working at Accenture now as a consultant. And Joe just kind of had a little bit of confusion on his face. And he looked at me, and all he said was, okay. And our adventure began. Fast forward a few months, I'm asked to interview to be the chief of staff for the president of Central Europe and Eurasia at Coca-Cola. And I have to tell you, this is a big deal job at Coke. There were only 35 at any one point in time, these chief of staff roles. And it was kind of their leadership development program. Their getting you ready for greater levels of leadership. And usually those jobs go to somebody who's in corporate finance or corporate marketing. So I honestly will tell you, I was completely shocked when they offered the job to me, an organizational change consultant. So I go home, I tell Joe. Joe leaves his job at Accenture. We pack up and we move to Vienna. We arrive in Vienna on November 16th, 1999. And I am so excited about this new job. I can hardly wait to get started. And 2 weeks into the job, it's kind of starting to rock and roll a little bit, but I'm still learning. The CEO of Coca-Cola is fired by the board. Now, I don't know why, but I was completely naive. I'm thinking that's happening over across the Atlantic Ocean. It'll have nothing to do with me. And I couldn't have been more wrong. 4 more weeks go by. 3 days after our furniture has arrived, and the president of Central Europe and Eurasia is fired by the new CEO. And as his job goes, so does mine. So suddenly, my husband and I are in Vienna. He doesn't have a job. I don't have a job. And I know what you're thinking. Okay, the logical thing to do is you're going to pack right back up, head back to Atlanta, and try to get your old jobs back. But we really wanted to make it work in Europe. So we started looking for other opportunities. And a friend of mine got me an interview at her company in London. And so I go for an interview in London and I meet the hiring manager, and it turned out she had just returned from a sabbatical, and she says to me, I'm asking her, tell me about the sabbatical, what was it? And she says, I walked El Camino de Santiago. And I can't explain it, but in that moment, it was like my heart just leapt out of my chest. And I was so excited, I was tingling, and I was trying to play it really cool, because I'm in an interview, I want to look professional. And so just very calmly, I say to her, what is that thing, the Camino? And she explains, it's this 500-mile footpath, 800 kilometers, that goes across northern Spain. It starts in the Pyrenees Mountains on the French-Spanish border, and then it crosses all the way over to Santiago de Compostela, the place believed to be the burial site of St. James, one of Jesus's 12 disciples. And internally, I'm thinking, I'm going to walk 500 miles, me? And at the same time, I'm going to go walk 500 miles. And so did I leave London and hop on a plane and head to Spain so I could go walk my 500 miles? No, I did not. No, I went back to Vienna. When you're an expat who's just gotten your visa and now you're sitting there, but you've just lost your job, there's a lot of complications that go along with that. And we were both still looking for new jobs, and Joe eventually landed a job in Madrid. So, September 2000, we move to Madrid. And so now it's a little over a year past the time I had my calling. Did I hop on a train and head to the Pyrenees? I did not. No, instead, I kind of got us settled into Madrid, into our new home. Joe started his new job, and believe it or not, we entertained a lot of visitors, 60 in the first 9 months. No joke. Free place to stay. Lots of people want to come to Spain. So that's what I was doing. Meanwhile, Joe starts his job, and he's really unhappy in that job. And eventually he decides that he doesn't want to stay in that job. So several months into it, he leaves. He joins a startup with a company that's back in the United States, but he's going to be their European representative. There's one little catch. It's 100% commission. But we were optimistic. He had worked with the founders in the past. He knew them. He knew it would take a bit of time to get things started, but we both felt really confident. Until we found out I was pregnant. And then we thought, 100% commission, we need something a little more stable. And so it's now June of 2001, and we decide that Joe will take a Marine Reserve assignment over in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. It'll be 3 months, it'll be for the summer, and it'll be during my second trimester. So he'll be home in time, and then we'll figure out kind of from that point, what do we do next? So Joe gets on a plane, he's in the air, I go to the doctor, I've just passed my first trimester, and the doctor says to me, Shannon, I am so sorry, but I can't find a heartbeat. And I was just devastated. And I didn't even know how to tell Joe because he was literally on a plane. So he's traveling away from me, and I'm managing all of my emotions. And it was a really, really hard summer. But I did start looking forward to Joe coming back in September. September 2001, 9/11, we all know what happened in the United States. And Joe is already on active duty. So he's mobilized. And when he's mobilized, before he has to go to his next assignment, he has 2 days to come home. And, hey, we're still basically newlyweds. So what are we doing? We're enjoying ourselves together, and I get pregnant again. So this is great news. He's gone, but I am now looking forward to our future family. And my doctor says, don't worry, it'd be highly unusual to have a second miscarriage at your age. And he was wrong. So I had my second miscarriage. And we're still separated, but we were able to see each other for just a couple of days right before the new year. And on New Year's Eve, Joe raises a glass and he says, Shannon, I know it has been a very tough year, but it couldn't get any worse. Clink! And I can't explain it, but my stomach just turned over and I thought, oh no, something really bad is coming. And 2 days later, my mom called to tell me that she had cancer. And I said to her, I can't even believe this is happening. And I started to cry. And she said, oh, honey, don't worry. The doctors say it's only stage 1. The surgery isn't even scheduled until 4 weeks out. So I was able to fly to Seattle and help my mom through the surgery, except it wasn't stage 1 cancer. I mean, you know where this story is going, right? It's not stage 1. It's spread to her lymph nodes and rib cage. It is stage 4 cancer. She has a 5% chance of living 5 years. And now, what was supposed to be an easy recovery has turned into months of very aggressive chemo and radiation. Once we get through most of that, I head home back to Madrid. It's now May of 2002, 3 years after receiving my calling. And I start to read the many books about the Camino that I've collected over the years. And Joe's able to come home for 1 month of leave in June. And he notices these books, and he says to me, as he's looking at the 8 books on my nightstand, are you going to walk the Camino? And I kind of froze. And I'm thinking very quickly through my head, am I going to walk the Camino? I mean, this is crazy. I shouldn't be walking the Camino. Am I going to walk the Camino? I mean, obviously, we're home for only 1 month, and we've been separated for so long, and we should be trying to start our family again. And he looks at me and he says, I want you to go. And I froze in panic because there is no way Joe was going to suggest that we spend another month apart if something wasn't really wrong, if it wasn't dire circumstances. I want you to go. And those 5 words truly changed my life. So, within 2 weeks, I was in the Pyrenees. And 30 days later, I was in Santiago de Compostela. Now, the truth is, there were a lot of things going on in my life that kind of explain why I didn't go. And yet at the same time, I know the truth. There were multiple times within that time period where I could have gone, and yet I didn't. So what finally mobilized me? 3 simple elements: dissatisfaction of my current state, vision of my future, and first steps to overcome my own resistance to change. What is referred to as David Gleicher's formula for change. Okay, how does this really fit? Well, first things first, remember that calling I had. It started out with something kind of nebulous. I couldn't really picture it. And then in London, I heard El Camino de Santiago, and now I had a vision. I had a vision of something really concrete. But was I dissatisfied? I mean, truthfully, I'd lost my job, but I had a really loving and supportive husband. So it wasn't until I lost my job and I had 2 miscarriages and my husband was mobilized and my mother had stage 4 cancer that I was dissatisfied with a capital D. And then when Joe said, I want you to go, I had the first steps that enabled me to move forward. Because this is a multiplication equation. If any one of them is 0 or missing, the product is 0. You will not embrace change. You will not overcome your own resistance. You will not launch your big idea or create your new reality. And as soon as Joe said, I want you to go, it was like the last tumbler fell into place. And then I moved. I was ready to go. Now, you might be saying, oh, Shannon, that's just you. But I can tell you, when I talk to the leaders that I'm coaching and I ask them, hey, how are things going? Were you able to get that thing done? When they have failed in something they tried to start, one of these elements was always missing. When they are successful, every single one is present. And we can see it in the business world. So there are business cases that abound. Now, most of us know Kodak. I think so. I look around the room and I think we would all know Kodak. Okay? This is the amazing thing. Kodak had the vision of the first digital camera. They had it. They made it. They thought it would cannibalize their film and paper products. And so they didn't launch it. And now they exist, but they are a shadow of their former selves. And that happened very quickly. Coca-Cola, you know that new CEO who came on board and fired the president of Central Europe and Eurasia? He did that because he came with first steps. He was going to eliminate 20% of all global headcount, and the president of Central Europe and Eurasia was one of that headcount. And he was fired 4 years later because he lacked vision. The board said so. They said, he lacks vision. We're bringing in a new CEO who has it. And so he didn't make it either. And finally, Blockbuster. Didn't we all love Blockbuster at one point in time? And here's the crazy thing. They knew how to be Netflix. They knew. And they had all of the content to be Netflix. They had vision. They did have dissatisfaction. And if you look at the research, it's because they lacked a strategic plan. They didn't have first steps. So, dissatisfaction of your current state, vision of the future, and first steps to overcome it. This is the formula for change. So now I want you to come back to that goal you had that I asked you to park a little earlier. And I want you to think about it for a moment. What was missing? Did you have enough dissatisfaction? Did you have a clear vision? Could you see yourself in the outcome? Did you know what you wanted to be able to do differently? Did you have the first steps to be able to get there? My guess is something was missing. So now you can take that one, or you can use another one, but we're going to craft something new, okay? Before I do that, we're going to do some work together. I just want to pause for a moment and see if you have any questions about what I've shared so far. So any questions? You ready to do some work? All right. Okay, so this is what we're going to do.